Hello everyone and welcome to Maundy Thursday and our latest Holy Week devotion. So far this week we've been taken through the senses of sight and smell and hearing with Brodie and Ian and Kaz, and today we're going to think about touch, and we're going to do that using the passage from John 13 where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. This event takes place during the Last Supper. Jesus and his disciples have had their meal, and just before Judas leaves to betray Jesus, Jesus gets up from the table, takes off his outer clothing, wraps a towel around his waist, and prepares to wash his followers' feet. He appears to have washed a few, and he comes to Simon Peter, and we read from verse 6. But Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later." Peter said, "No, you will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "If I don't wash your feet, then you're not one of my people." Simon Peter answered, "Lord, after you wash my feet, wash my hands and my head too." Jesus said, "After a person has had a bath, his whole body is clean. He needs only to wash his feet. And you men are clean, but not all of you." Jesus knew who would turn against him. That's why Jesus said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and sat down again. Jesus asked, "Do you understand what I've just done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and this is right, because that's what I am. I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet. So you also should wash each other's feet. I did this as an example for you, so you should do as I have done for you." I'm sure you can agree there's a lot to think about in this passage. As we consider Jesus' interaction with Simon Peter, we know that Jesus washing his disciples' feet was about holiness, not hygiene, and obviously at this time we are very aware of hygiene and the implications that has. But this is about holiness, not hygiene, a reminder to all who follow Jesus that we need to take time to draw close to God, to be cleansed and refreshed in his presence. And of course, just like Jesus arriving in Jerusalem on a donkey rather than a kingly steed, Jesus serving his followers in this way is a picture of how God's kingdom is different and how we as Christians are to be different in the way we serve each other. But as I said earlier, what I really want to think about is touch. In this time of COVID-19, when so many of us are having to be physically distant from one another, touch, or indeed its absence, looms large. In verse 8, where Simon Peter says to Jesus that he doesn't want his feet washed, and Jesus replies, "If I don't wash your feet, you're not one of my people," we're reminded that touch is about belonging and connection. And normally when we meet people, we shake hands. In families and church families, we greet each other with a hug or a kiss or a handshake. When people are hurting and grieving, we offer comfort with an arm around the shoulder, a hug, a hand laid on an arm. And that has all had to change. And while Zoom and Messenger and WhatsApp and the phone, among other ways, are great to connect, it's not the same. They're not able to fill that physical gap, that absence of touch. As I was preparing this, I was reminded of a Godfrey Birtle song from a few years back. In the chorus it states, "Just one touch from the King changes everything." And in these days of physical distance from one another, more than ever, we need Jesus to touch those we cannot physically be with at this time. Those who are hurting and grieving, those who are lonely and isolated, those who are ill and afraid, those of us missing friends and family and loved ones, and touch. Let's pray together. Thank you, Father, that your heart is for connection and belonging and relationship. At this time of physical distance for so many, we ask for that touch of the King that changes everything. We ask you now to bring people to mind that need to have someone reach out and connect with them today. And where we can't be physically present with people, we pray in the words of Psalm 139 and verse 5, that they will know that you are all around them, in front of them and behind them, and that you have put your hand on them. Amen. Thank you for joining us today, and please join us tomorrow if you can for our next Holy Week devotion.